So my name's Cole Evans. I'm the CEO of Enduro Metals. We're a junior explorer up in the heart of northwestern BC's Golden Triangle. Our 638 square kilometer land package is the Newmont Lake Project, where we're focused on copper, gold, silver, on a number of different deposit types throughout the land package.
Cool, good to see you, man. Haven't seen you since February. Where have you been hiding?
I've been hiding in a little tent. We were just talking.
Literally.
Literally. No, I was just over 100, almost 110 days in the field up there on the drill program. You gotta make sure someone's got to point the drill. Like I was joking with you, we're not that big yet.
That's insane. That's got to change, man, hasn't it?
Yeah, it does. It definitely. We were joking as regaining my sanity, and it plays on you, and don't see too many other people or vehicles or use a real toilet or something like that for months on end.
Nice. So what do you? I was actually going to ask, what do you now see as a luxury that perhaps you took for granted before? Without the toilet comment, please.
Oh, geez. Luxury that I see now. Just the ability of being able communication for sure. There's forget cell service. We rarely have reliable internet. If it's raining or if it's too cloudy, we don't even have internet capable of sending an email. Do you know what I mean? Let alone when the weather it is nice, or even if the weather's bad and for whatever reason, Mississauga, Ontario, where the system's based out of, your internet's down there too. So it's communication's the biggest thing you take for granted.
Right. Okay. So no more camping holidays for you then, I suspect.
No. When I come home, I want to go to the resort and do nothing. And
okay, we better get serious here.
One day.
So you told me 110 days in the field, and I was like, that is just insane. I don't think I could do that for a weekend. Right. I've seen some press releases, which is why, we kind of reached out to you. Some of the drill results, really, really impressive stuff. We'll talk about it in a second. 0.71 copper equivalent over 330 odd meters. It's really good news. But I want to talk to you about what you've been up to since we last spoke in February. Okay, when we talked to you last, it was a gold story, maybe some copper and some other stuff, right? So what's been happening since February, and what are the things that have changed and shaped your strategy and enabled you to go and find copper results like that?
Yeah, great question. Well, one of the things that, in myself personally, and I think this is true of the whole company as well, is we're big believers in copper from a long-term perspective, right? Copper is the new oil, I think, is the title CNBC puts on it or whatever, and we're big believers in that. And so part of what we view as our long-term focus is your copper with, of course, in British Columbia, copper and gold do come together, but it's your copper first and gold porphyry systems. And that's what we believe, when we last chatted, will have the most value for our shareholders going forward. In 2021 is about finding it. And that's what these drill results represent for us. This is without a doubt a undiscovered copper gold porphyry system that now has been.
Right. Okay. So last time we talked to you, you're a really small company. You're still, 53, 55 million, depending on the time of day at the moment. Share price, people are impressed with the drill result. You saw a nice recovery there over the past couple of weeks for sure. But can we now expect you to be just talking the copper story? I know there'll be gold will be a kind of byproduct in a way, but is that the focus for you? And is that part because of the narrative in the marketplace, or is that because we see genuinely the most potential on your property?
I would say that narrative in the marketplace is probably the second most important thing. It comes back to, like I said, what we believe the long-term fundamentals are on copper, and maybe not a third place component, but just a fun component. Looking for copper's fun. You know what I mean? So. Anyways, you always gotta, like we joke, you always gotta have a good time with what you're doing. But yeah, no, the most important things are definitely what we see from the long term, from a copper perspective. People talk about the demand side, which is relatively easy to understand. Like to say that the Tesla Model S uses 3 times as much copper as your Toyota Corolla. But what fewer investors when I'm out talking with people understand is the problems in the supply side with copper are huge, and the lead time for a copper project to develop is far longer than a gold project or silver, any other project. So if for the major mining companies that are looking to get in the game, you have to have good copper projects in your pipeline now, not 5 years from now, not 2 years from now. You got to be looking now. And we feel that we're on the path to finding the next big copper project for British Columbia.
Okay, and copper porphyries, usually quite expensive beasts, kind of get to get into production. And given the size of the project, what do you something like, was it 638,000?
638 square kilometers.
Yes, right, 638. That's insane, right? So how are you thinking about the business side of things now? Obviously, you've got Rob McEwen on board, big shareholder, and with his connections, and what the market's telling you about the need for copper and hopefully gold projects next year. How do you play this? You're explorers, you're in the field, physically, literally in the field exploring. How do you play this thing? I mean, do you say, well, we're going to go all after this Newmont Lake project, see what we can build there to a certain stage, get financing to take it through to whatever that stage is, and then flip it out to someone else, and we'll get on with some of these other targets that we've got, these other deposits that we've got. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. That is, and an explorer, it is not, I look at exploration and mining, they're two businesses within the same industry, right? A good explorer is not necessarily going to be a good miner, and quite frankly, good miners aren't necessarily good explorers. You got to stay focused on what you're good at, and that's what's going to create the most value. So when we look at the copper gold porphyries, we're talking, like you said, taking it further from an exploration standpoint. The important thing that we need to show, to the market, to potential buyers further down the road is, what's the size of this thing? What's the scale, right? Porphyries are, of course, bulk tonnage systems. How big is this going to be? And, and then of course, grade is king, right? But, we feel good in the numbers that we've already put out thus far, that we believe are still on the fringes of the system, that, okay, that's the kind of grade that'll work for Northwestern British Columbia. So if we have that grade, and then we can start to show people, hey, look at the size potential of this system. It's again, I say a relative ease of accessibility. I said it to another gentleman I was on the phone with yesterday. It's not Kansas, right? It's not flat, but relative to other places in the Golden Triangle in particular, it's easy access, and that's highlighted by the fact that in our first season after the discovery, we'll be able to have the winter snow roads and trails right on top of drill targets. So that's going to help drive down our costs significantly, which of course, when you're talking about, like I said, from a porphyry perspective, where you've got a lot of meters to drill, is going to make a material difference in the long run.
Right. So how many meters? You announced obviously the 10,000 meter drill program, right? So how many meters have you actually drilled to date?
We've drilled about 7,000 so far of that, just smidge over. Unfortunately, with the winter weather, just came in earlier than we were expecting. I think than anyone was expecting this year. So we opted to, okay, you could have kept going, but your cash burn is significantly higher, right? When you're fighting the weather before you bring in equipment that's made for it. So I opted, okay, let's save our dollars here. We can come back in when, like I said, when we start packing in the winter roads and trails and get started, even months earlier than we did in this past season, working with our winter roads and stuff. So we opted to do that, knowing as well that, okay, of course, with base metals, you can see visually, thinking that, okay, I think we're gonna get some good results, and let's wait for those to get back from the lab and work with it from there.
Right. Okay. So you got a bunch more information to come back from the lab, try and work out how you tackle this thing. If they continue to deliver like the intercept that you put out recently, 331 meters at 0.71 copper equivalent. If you're getting those sorts of numbers and you think you're only on the fringes, do you change that drill meter program that you've told the market about? For sure, right? So
significant.
Right. So how do you go about financing that thing?
Well, part of it is getting our story out there. I feel it's amazing, and I've learned this from a couple mentors of mine. It's amazing how long it can take the market to digest good results. And just, of course, from our perspective, the company, where we're eating and breathing this thing, you think, okay, the moment it's out to the market, oh, people are going to understand instantly, which is not the case. So that's our number one thing. We need to get it out there. We need to get it in front of people. We need to get that open market buying, drive our share price. We have $17 million in warrants at 38 cents that come up in February. That, you know, we'd like to move our share price to the point where those could start to get exercised is one of our goals. And then, of course, to you know, when the time is right, we can finance with some of our loyal shareholders, or there's also other interested parties that, like I said, it's hard to find a good copper project, and people chomp at the bit to get involved with one.
Well, they are. We've been interviewing a few recently. You know, companies of a certain size, sub $100 million, you know, and trying to put out these drill results, and it's not, given the price of copper in the market, you know, near all-time highs, right? It's insane. The copper exploration companies are not getting the attention that I would have thought they would have got. I thought people would be excited about this. It seems like they're distracted. Not only have they left gold as a potential investment, they're also not coming into copper in the way. You got any thoughts about what's happening in the marketplace?
Yeah, you know, it's illogical at times. Definitely. I think there's been a bit of traction. Of course, a lot of success down in Ecuador recently with a couple of copper explorers there. You know, like I said, I think from a really, it's, you know, we're talking copper, but it's all base metals. You know, zinc is doing well, and they all are based on, that's a longer conversation, but it goes back to, for me, I'm always thinking about the supply side, being in the mining business, and if investors, you know, spend the time to really understand the issues in the supply side, particularly over the long term, right? And it's like everyone talk, the copper squeeze. You know, people have been talking about it for years, but often you know, we're reactive. We're not proactive as humans. So, but for those investors that are proactive, of course, I think they're going to do really well as a result.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You're talking about like Solaris and Adventus,
Solaris, Filo,
Filo for sure. That's great result. Right? Even small ones like Salazar, you know, getting a bit of attention.
Incredible discoveries.
Incredible, right? But Canadian, you're going to tell me this story. It's obviously a safe jurisdiction, easy to do business, and all the rest of it. So we better get back to letting you say that. So, okay, you've laid out the case. Say we can probably access money. So if you were to raise money, do you go big because you know enough to say we've got something really good here, or do you just carefully go about raising money cautiously like a typical junior explorer?
Well, we always got to be cautious who you raise money with, but I feel like we have the right people involved, or can get the right people involved that we're not too worried about that. But no, it's ramping up. There's one way you're going to find this, and it's drilling holes. It's drilling more holes. It's drilling as many holes as you can. So that going into, you know, this transition through 2021 and then early into 2022, that's what it's about. It's not just going back to finish off a few thousand meters. It's an entirely new drill program again now. Let's double it. Let's triple it, right? Because we don't know the exact numbers right now. We need to put significant meters into this because nobody else has drilled it before. Literally, we're the only company to have ever drilled this target before. And that was first diamond drill hole in 2019. Right. And that's where we started to see a bit of the smoke, for lack of a better way of putting it. You know, and then we went back, retooled, rethought the system in essentially that what we call first pass program. So aside from one or two holes, they're never more than really 150 meters deep. You were basically either beside it or above it. You just got to get, these are vertically oriented systems, right? You just got to get deeper. And so we retooled our strategy and did that. And sure enough, it's working out.
Really, 150 meters. That's you said you were sort of drilling down like what, 150 meters? Is that what you just said?
And initially, yeah. So in that first pass drilling, the holes were relatively short. I mean, I would even say, you know, this drill hole that we just put out was 445 meters, which from a porphyry perspective is still relatively short. You know, that's where it ended at. Lots of porphyry systems, you're not getting into the goods until around 400, 500 meters. So it's relatively shallow. And then when you compare, looking at the copper, like I said, copper is the most important for us, is if you look at the copper grades, particularly take that 146 meter interval, I think that it's a 0.42% copper with 0.55 gold. And then there's 0.5% zinc and 8 grams silver with it as well. But if you look at those copper grades and you compare those to any big copper project or mine in British Columbia, I feel they stand up well against it. That is definitely high grade for copper in like you said, a tier 1 mining jurisdiction in Canada.
So what are you starting to see here? I mean, again, and I haven't got a lot of the results back here, but in terms of these sort of byproducts, whether it be gold or other things, these tend to be sort of polymetallic type structures in a lot of cases. Have you got a sense of what you're going to be finding?
Yeah, like from a metal perspective, or yeah, it's gonna. We believe the system. So there's 5, let's call them fingerprints of mineral deposits in the Golden Triangle, right? Ranging from your big porphyry copper gold projects to your Eskay Creek VMS, right? There's 5 different fingerprints. We sit in the fingerprint that is most similar to Galore Creek. Now, Galore Creek gets a bad rap because the project's 110 kilometers out into the mountains, right? And very difficult to access. Hence why I always emphasize to people, our ease of accessibility is a huge thing going for us. That'll probably be realized as time goes on.
Meaning that it's not ease of access right now, but it will not be expensive to make it accessible. Is that what you're saying for someone or something?
Yeah, relative to when we're making comparisons to Galore Creek. Yeah, like I said, we can drive as it sits right now. Just when the snow's base is piled up, we can drive equipment just with that. We say winter road construction. Construction is relatively minimal, right? So if you can do that right off the bat, okay, that's excellent. But the side to Galore that gets overlooked by many investors is it's still a world-class system at over 800 million tons, depending on how you cut it. About 0.46 copper with gold as well. This is from a copper perspective, that is the highest grade copper porphyry in British Columbia. That has significant size, and we're of course arc parallel right to it. We have the same geochemistry, it's the same orientation. We've done our geochronology, it's the same age. They're the same silica undersaturated intrusions. So it becomes one of those stories. It looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, flies like a duck. What is it? And it's in the middle of the swamp. It's a good spot to be.
Okay, well, just on this sort of transportation component, I know you said it's going to be cheap in terms of doing winter roads and so forth, but
relatively
relative to those guys, okay,
yeah.
Right. And at some point, it also doesn't become a big issue for you at some point down the line. But as it stands today, winter roads don't exist, airstrip doesn't exist. What's the planning for those? At what point do you start making plans for those?
Yeah, so we already have an airstrip, and we actually did some expansions to it this year in our camp.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have an airstrip. It's capable right now of bringing a single turbine otter, but like I said, that's in the process of expansion. That's another thing too, of course, with the winter roads is you're able to now bring in larger equipment. Part of the problem with when you're working with the helicopters, we talk about cost, but just the fact that you're limited to load size of bringing in equipment that's no more than 2,000 pounds. So, okay, now we can actually bring in equipment to start making those infrastructure improvements easily, right? Because of course it's just tracked in. So that airstrip expansion, can continue at a larger scale. You can bring in larger aircraft. Of course, you can make winter airstrips as well, which we have, ample place to be able to do that. So,
okay, thanks for clearing that up.
There, and then the winter road.
Thanks for clearing that up. I appreciate that. Can I talk to you about a couple other projects, which obviously 72 zone, people are talking about PGEs there. We've got people wanting to understand a little bit at Chachi in terms of moly and what you're seeing there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So why don't you start off with 72 zone? What can you update us with?
So 72 zone is really part of the whole Burgundy system. This is at the northeastern end. And if you go into the last press release we put out in figure 2 gives you a nice plan view showing the geophysics of that. So that magnetic anomaly, what that's interpreted as, this is your source batholith. So you can see it's one large system. What you can see in these alkalic porphyries, particular to them, of course, these are quite rare, but and it's not necessarily correlated with the highest copper gold grades. Sometimes they can be, separate mineralizing events in themselves. But they are noted, particularly in British Columbia, to have PGEs, palladium. Not so much on the platinum side here, but palladium. And we did the geochemistry. If you look back to the press release when we put that out, and again, we've got that fingerprint, just like your Galore Creek, your Milligan, your Afton, Ajax, your other porphyries that fit into that alkalic realm. So that's a really important thing. And, it particularly, Canada and the US had an agreement for strategic metals and things like that, where, okay, palladium's on the list as one of those things where they need to find domestic sources of. So actually even having that was a good way for us to get some funding for research and that from the government. But is it the most important aspect to the project? No. From what we've seen thus far, like there's no palladium at Burgundy itself. It's over at 72. It is still a copper first project, but it's one of those things that it's interesting, and of course it has value. We'll see where that goes to in the long term, but it's a copper project.
Not getting distracted with PGEs now. Copper, number one, got it. Moly, big anomaly near Chachi. What can you tell us there?
Yes, so we're going to have more information coming out about that, so I'm going to have to be a little vague in my answer. Moly, though, what you typically see is, so you see, I keep using this word alkalic. Why? Well, it's a type of porphyry system, just to simply put, and one that you're going to see typically the higher copper grades in. But then you also have, on the flip side of that, other ones we call calc-alkaline systems. These are more traditional porphyry deposits. If we're talking British Columbia, Highland Valley copper, the largest copper mine in Canada, would be an example of a calc-alkaline one. That's ones where you're typically getting copper and moly together. Rarely do you get deposits where you've got copper, moly, and gold. So from what I can say right now is, the moly just kind of gives us a different fingerprint, so to speak, to the eastern portion of the property with respect to porphyries. But again, more results are going to be coming out on that, and we touch on that more when they are there. But in the Chachi quarter, that from a geochemical perspective, what we have right now, that's actually our largest copper and moly anomaly together on the project. Okay,
so when do all these assays, these results start coming out? How many weeks have we got to wait?
Great question. As you know, I'm never one that can give a exact timeline, because it's in third party hands. Of course, all the geochemistry is done by a third party. What I can tell you, though, is we are expecting a better turnaround time than last year. And the reason for that, and I went and saw it 2 weeks ago, the prep facilities for all the laboratories are doing much better this year than they were last year. You're still running into backups because they all funnel to the analytical lab. So you're still getting backups at the analytical lab, and like any business right now, they're having problems in their supply chain, just getting basic consumables and things like that are slowing them down. So it still makes the exact timeline unpredictable, but I can say at least the first half of the backup that we saw last year is non-existent anymore. So it's going to be better than last year, but probably not as good as what people have been used to, years prior to COVID.
Okay, nice and vague.
If that makes sense. I don't. You're talking hope
soon.
Hopefully I don't want to say we're going to have it all by the end of the year. I hope we do, but I don't know.
Okay, we're going to start seeing some results soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Understood. Just some more drilling questions, if you don't mind. So have you drilled McLymont yet? If so, what depth? What are you doing there? Is it core or not?
Yeah. So we diamond drilled along the McLymont as well. So that was following up on, like I said, what our secondary goal is continuing to develop our the high grade gold that we have there. But it's a copper project first, particularly now that we can show that, there is a porphyry there. It's not just some crazy thought in our minds. So we drilled there following up on we had the 8.85 meters at 32 grams gold last year. So we have follow-up drilling in that Troy vein area that we call it. That's just, again, along the McCly. That's a zone along the McLymont fault that just keeps moving northeast of where the historic drilling was done in the late 80s at the northwest zone.
Okay, so you're starting to build a picture here, but you're not getting distracted from, in terms of money, amount of people that you've got on the ground, the fact that it is where it is. You've got to get focused on the best way to spend your shareholders' money, but also the best way of creating value here. And for you, that's clearly one, copper, but two, Newmont Lake target is the thing, right? That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, the Burgundy at Newmont Lake. So Newmont Lake's a greater property, yeah, but Burgundy, so that's where we when we discussed with the board when we were planning this season, it was 2021 was the last year of poking around, so to speak, and figuring, okay, what is going to be the target? We're fortunate that we have optionality with respect to targets, but what's going to be the one that's going to create the most value? We need to be able to answer that by the end of this year, and that's what we believe now that the results that we've gotten from Burgundy. So that's going to be the main focus moving forward. And like I said, it's drill, drill, drill. That's the only way you're going to find something.
Beautiful. So it's just when you kind of get exploration or early stage exploration companies coming on, and they're looking at, oh, we've got some anomalies all over the place. We're going to go and try and work out what we've got here. There's no focus, and it's money. I just feel like it's money being spent without any real sort of,
what are the goals?
Yeah, like just literally show me how you're going to make money here, please.
It's not a science project. It's
not a.
I always say to people, it's not a. I say that to people, all the time. We've got a really good team that I feel understands that well. But particularly when you're training new geologists, this is not a science project. This is economic geology. Yeah.
You moved from school to the real world. We need to focus on the economics. I love it. Okay. Hey, well, Carl, great update. I think when we were talking before, you promised to actually come back on and speak to someone far more intelligent than me, technically, about how you're going about doing what you're doing, what you're seeing, and what the process could be next. So one of our analysts is going to come and talk to you, hopefully in the next 4 or 5 weeks, depending on once you've settled down.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Brilliant. Okay, well, enjoy that. And thanks for today. Good to see you again. Far too long. And we'll take advantage of it while you're not hiding out in the woods. Good man. See you soon.
Perfect. No, my pleasure, Matt. Always appreciate talking to you.